I were to ask you, what is the most important skill in innovation? I'm suspecting the things that may come to mind would be things like creativity or lateral thinking. And yet, while those things are important and certainly helpful to the innovation process, can I suggest the most important skill in innovation actually begins with the letter E, and it is empathy. The ability to step into the world of your consumers, your users, your clients, to see things from their perspective, walk a mile in their shoes, and innovate in a way that serves them, to empathize with their perspective. Now, Sony's co-founder, a guy named Akio Morita, was famous for this. To a large extent, Morita would dismiss quantitative research. Instead, for him, when it came to innovation, and this is the man, by the way, who invented, who contrived the Walkman and the Discman, some of Sony's most legendary and successful products, he did this not by relying on the data alone, but by observing and empathizing with customers, to see them in their natural habitat and innovate in a way that would serve them based on his observations. I heard a great example recently of the power of empathy in driving breakthrough innovation, and it was from a colleague of mine based in the UK, a guy named Peter Knight. And Peter Knight was sharing this story, the experience of Costa Coffee a number of years ago. Now, Costa Coffee, the world's second largest coffee chain behind Starbucks, was facing a challenge a few years ago. Their per store spend had stagnated or was decreasing. And so they were looking at ways to, ramp up the amount people were spending in their cafes. And while most of the leadership team were poring over spreadsheets and data trying to figure out what was going wrong, the assumptions were likely things like, well, maybe the decor needs updating in our cafes, maybe our food range is too expensive, or our coffee range is not extensive enough. They're trying to figure out what was going wrong. One of the leadership team decided to do something different. He stepped out of Costa's head office and went and based himself for one day near the front door of one of Costa's busier cafes in downtown London. And he just watched. He observed customers in their natural habitat. And what he noticed is every fourth or fifth customer would walk in, have a look around, then turn around and walk back out again, having not ordered anything. Now, at first, he thought it was a bit of an anomaly, and so he just dismissed it. But when this kept happening over a long period of time, he got so intrigued after about an hour and a half, he actually followed one of the people who'd done this, who come in, looked around, walked back out again, followed them down the street and actually caught up with them, introduced himself, said he worked for the company, and he was just curious why they had done that. And they apologized, said they didn't mean to be offensive, and they just explained that they had their laptop in their bag and they needed to do some work. And they said they walked into the cafe and their laptop was almost out of battery, so they realized they need to plug in somewhere to do some work, and they know all the tables in the cafe where the PowerPoints are, and they instantly recognised all of those tables were taken. So they turn around and walk back out again, knowing they'd have to go somewhere else to do some work that day. And when this leadership team member walked back into the cafe, was talking to one of the barista acknowledged, he said, well, we lose a lot of customers for that very reason. And so this leadership team member went back to the rest of the executive and explained what he'd learned. And this was not even on their radar, the impact of PowerPoints. And they went back and retrofitted their cafes with PowerPoints next to every second or third table, up to the ratio of PowerPoints in their cafes within 6 months. Get this, their per store spend had jumped 20%. Now, I'm sure that it wasn't all about PowerPoints, but that was probably a key part of that surge in growth and popularity. Now, that innovation would not have occurred by simply hanging out at head office. It required empathy. Getting out into the marketplace, stepping into your customer's shoes, seeing things from their perspective. And for you, I would ask, how can you more actively empathize with your customers and your users? And perhaps one of the best ways to do this is become a customer of your own business. This is incredibly powerful. In fact, I was working with one of the large banks recently, and the person on their marketing team was saying that they'd recently just set up a new account with the bank and realized how complicated the process was. And she actually documented all the steps she had to go through and the things that weren't clear, the things that didn't make sense, the duplication of fine print. And she then took this back to the team that were responsible for the sign-up process, and they revolutionized the sign-up process for new customers as a result of the experience of this staff member who became a customer of her own bank. So what is it for you? How could you empathize with your customers, your users? You will likely find the most powerful innovations will come from the experience.